Ramily, Ramily. Welcome in to another episode of Ramsaholic off season. Today, we're going to discuss the Los Angeles Rams free agents due up this season, as well as the top five guys I feel we need to re sign. As always, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. Returning members, I appreciate you. Everybody, smash that like button, share. Ramly. Let's get right into it. So, the Rams free agents this year, we have 17. Carson Wentz, quarterback. Demarcus Robinson, wide receiver. Troy Reader. No need to get into positions. You guys already know. It's the Ramley. Kell Withersspoon, John Johnson, Duke Shelley, Kevin Dotson, Bryson Hopkins, Laryl Marchinson, Jonah Williams, Austin Trammell, Jordan Fuller, Tremaine Akram, Christian Roseboom, Aric Jackson, Ronnie Rivers, and Michael Hoyt, the LA God. Obviously, a lot of big names for our team. And a lot of guys that had key roles this year are free agents, but you can't sign everyone. You have a rookie class coming in. You could have upwards of $90 million in cap with some cuts, with some restructures. So you're going to bring in some other guys. So players have to go. Now, when I was making my top five list, it wasn't the easiest thing to do, especially after I got past number three. I feel like the three I have at the top are probably the three that a lot of people will have, right? Um, you got to bring in the guys that had key roles and guys that solidified your offense and your defense. Um, even if you plan to bring in someone in the same position group, you might need to develop them. Granted, last year we were able to take young guys and throw them right in, and it worked out. It doesn't always happen that way. I think the Rams, what they did in the draft last year, is really fluky. To get the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year, in my opinion, is hard, especially when you're getting those guys in the third and the fifth round. And then in the third round, when you nail two guys that had 8+ sacks each, I mean, Les Snead is the GM of the year. Incredible job he did. So, without further ado, here is the top five free agents that the Rams cannot allow to walk. Number five, Demarcus Robinson. Wide receiver, 29 years old. Now, he was a big piece for us down the stretch. Had 4 touchdowns, 4 straight games, really started to gel with Matthew Stafford. And what he did was really take the pressure off Puka and Cup and guys like that, and really took Tutu Atwell's wide receiver 3 position by the horns and ran with it. Now, I have him here at 5 because there's no guarantee that we get T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, one of those top wide receivers on the free agent market. And there's no guarantee that we hit on a wide receiver in later rounds. I do not see the Rams drafting a wide receiver at pick 19. Fully not sure if they're sticking at pick 19, but nonetheless, they don't need a wide receiver as bad as they need other positions, edge, cornerback, that if they use that 19th pick, either going to trade up or stay put, they would go with those positions. I think if we really are striking out, not overbidding for the Higgins, for the Pittmans, I would love to have Higgins, but There's going to be a big, big market, and teams like the Patriots will throw money at him. You know, uh, there's going to be teams like the Texans. You never even know. The Bengals might come in and franchise tag him. Anything is possible, and why not take a guy that proved himself in an offense where not everyone thrives? I mean, Allen Robinson last year was supposed to do not exactly what Puka did, but he was supposed to give us that reliable number two option with the possibility of taking a fair share of targets away from Cup so we could have him well rested down the stretch. That obviously didn't happen. So we learned Tutu Atwell. I love the guy. I think he had great moments this year, especially in those first few games when Cup was out. Played tremendous. Everyone thought this was his breakout. But then he started to really lose touches and snaps to Demarcus Robinson. And for good reason. Demarcus Robinson's a very good route runner, has some good range. Um, and at number 5, I think he would fit that criteria of the most important free agent to bring back. At number 4, Jordan Fuller. Now, Fuller did not play in the playoffs for us. Our Super Bowl run, he was hurt. So late season, injuries and last year missing time. Injuries could be a concern for him, but he is only 25, soon to be 26. I think we could bring him back on a shorter, cheaper contract. Of course, the Rams never bring back safeties. LaMarcus Joyner, John Johnson, guys like that, we let them walk. Test free agency, get paid. With Jordan Fuller getting hurt, his market may not be there. I mean, even Nick Scott, Taylor Rapp last year, his market may not be there. But if he does leave, then we'll have to get John Johnson, right? John Johnson's 3 years older, and I do like John Johnson, but I think John Johnson's prime has already hit and been capped. I think Jordan Fuller can still hit that prime. He had some big moments. The Cardinals game was probably his best game of the season. And then he had some bad games this year. But overall, I think his age, I think the IQ he brings, out of Ohio State, that was a big thing with Jordan Fuller. He was a very smart player, can really read an offense, can really read where wide receivers are going. Not the most athletic, not the best tackler, but I think bringing him back helps us at least have one starting safety back. Yeast might be the next guy unless we address it in the draft, but I think Fuller is an important piece to add, and I think the contract can be reasonable with him. At number 3, Kell Witherspoon. Keller Witherspoon, 28 years old, played great this year. Probably his best season as an NFL pro so far. He's been in Pittsburgh, he's been in San Francisco, had a lot of injury issues, but played every game for us. So Killo really did what we expected from Durant, right? To be that number 1. I thought Durant was going to be a household name by the end of the season, and he ended up being benched uh, before getting that starting role back from Darion Kendrick. And Quentin Lake in the slot took his role, which made sense. But Akilla Witherspoon, important to add him. I do feel strongly the Rams are going to address cornerback this year. Tomlinson, we're not sure what he's going to bring. Did not play any significant snaps on defense. Special teams, he did. We don't know what he's going to be. I think Akilla Witherspoon, you bring him in on a 2-year deal, $8 to $10 million a year, and you try to nail another cornerback either in the draft or free agency. And Akilla Witherspoon could be a number 2. We have Quentin Lake in the slot, Durant, Kendrick. They're young. See if they can earn that role back. Kell Witherspoon would have it, but anything can happen. Those guys work hard in the offseason. They can have it back. But that's a bunch of ifs. And we need consistency right now. The Rams are going to be making a Super Bowl run. It's going to start with this incredible offseason that will for sure be one to remember since last year's was not. Um, I think Kell Witherspoon's a big part. And if you could have him as your second best cornerback on the outside, then you're in very good shape going forward. Number two, Aric Jackson. He is 25 years old. So he's young, left tackle, important position in football. I say, you bring him in on a 3-year contract, maybe a contract similar to what we gave Joseph Noteboom. I think Aric Jackson has been way more deserving than Noteboom was of his contract. I know Noteboom stepped in for Whitworth during his time in LA when he was injured, and he filled in very well. The Tampa Bay game, obviously in the divisional round, comes to mind, but he did not live up to that contract. And Aric Jackson has played well for us. He's a left tackle. This similar to Kell Witherspoon. I still think, you address that tackle position. Rob Havenstein's getting older. I have Joseph Noteboom as a cut candidate just because the cap we can save and spend elsewhere. Bring in Aric Jackson. Maybe you draft someone in the second round as a tackle. But having Aric Jackson, he could develop a year under him. And Aric Jackson's, to me, play good. Injuries has been a big thing with him as well. So I'm not expecting us to sign him to a crazy guaranteed contract, but maybe in the ballpark of a Joseph Noteboom. And then at number one, of course, Kevin Dotson, right? How can I not want this guy with the Rams? His age, he is 27 years old, had his best season as an NFL pro, really found his groove in this offense, was a real big part of this run offense, especially when we would run to the right side. Um, Dotson was incredible. He had one of the highest PFF grades as a guard, and the man was amazing for us. Joseph Noteboom started, quickly lost that role, and Dotson never looked back. I think with Dotson, I think a franchise tag is always an option, but we never use it. So give him the contract. I think this contract would probably have to be a 4-year, $80 million contract. And I'm down with it. Big thing here is my top two guys, offensive line, right? You have to have continuity in the offensive line. Now, not really sure what's going to happen with Coleman Shelton. He had a bad year, one of the worst players on this offensive line. But we could probably find a guard slash center in the draft. Maybe you hear rumors of Steve Avella moving to center. Nonetheless, we need to keep this offensive line outside of Coleman Shelton together. If we don't cut Joseph Noteboom, keep him as a depth piece. But I think it's clear as day. Kevin Dotson, that's the guy, the most important to this offensive line, and of all of our free agents, the main guy that we need to dot in on. Now, an honorable mention, John Johnson, Carson Wentz. I talked about John Johnson briefly. His age, 28 years old. He's been with the Rams most of his career. After a little stint with Cleveland, he came back this year. He played well, played very well. Maybe we get him on a 1-year contract back. Just because I have my top 5 does not mean I don't want any of these other guys. But there's certain players you have to zone in on. And I think the five that I picked were John Johnson's definitely an honorable mention. And then Carson Wentz. This is a big thing about what is he going to want? 8 to 10 million a year. That's usually what the top backups make, and he would be considered a top backup, especially after his performance versus San Francisco. But the Rams could look to the draft to get a quarterback. But regardless, I think after seeing last year what happened when we didn't have a solid backup, we almost cost ourselves a playoff spot. Thankfully, going 7-1 down the stretch got us that 6 seed, but we easily could have missed out on the playoffs. And that Rapin game really sticks to mind. Rambly, thank you all for tuning in. Of course, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones. Your boy Ramsaholic, and I'm out.